Welcome to Modern Sages. We are so thrilled to be sharing with you the amazing topic of lower world journeys. These lower world journeys are so amazing, so empowering, just so much goodness. So we're just so excited to share more about that with you.
Welcome to Modern Sages Podcast.
I'm Jenn Gilbreth.
And I'm Candace Coons.
With over 25 years combined, we have delivered messages from beyond,
explored ancient healing wisdom, and integrated these profound teachings into our everyday life.
We are passionate about creating new ways of being human in the modern age by integrating the wisdom of the past with the present and coming into remembrance of who we truly are.
Are you ready to change your relationship to life itself? If the answer is yes, your journey begins now.
Okay.
And before we start, we are going to talk about ashwagandha. And I'm sure a lot of people have heard about this herb. And this is something that we have used, you and I, in our medicinals, whether it be in tea, which is what we're drinking, or if you use it in cap form or powder form. But this medicinal herb is extremely powerful. It's not the best tasting herb, I would say. So you're going to want to pair this with other herbs that taste a little bit better,
Yes.
But it's strong medicine for sure. What are some of the things that it does, Jen?
Yeah. So along with, there's so many benefits, but ashwagandha has a long reputation for helping with clearing the mind. It's there to help calm the nervous system, and it helps promote deep sleep. There's a lot of amino acids that are also within ashwagandha that is there to help promote your mind and mind clarity. It's just so powerful.
Yes, and help reduce stress and anxiety, helps with depression. There's been studies that have been done with people with schizophrenia, where they have used ashwagandha to see if it would help reduce the anxiety and depression that they feel. Mm-hmm. And the ones that used ashwagandha had significant reduction in stress and anxiety and depression compared to those with a placebo. So it's a powerful herb. It's also been used to help people with strength. So you'll see a lot of ashwagandha in athletic blends because it's supposed to increase athletic performance. But I would definitely suggest, if you're going to do it for that reason, take it in the cap. Take it in cap form as opposed to using the powder, because you remember you used the powder, you were telling me, you're like, it was so bad I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, I got it to put in my protein shakes, and it was not good. Not good.
Yes,
very
not recommended.
Earthy. Yeah, it's very earthy, kind of chalky. And so, of course, I have different blends of teas here, and within both of the ones that I use that I really love, ashwagandha is in both of them. And it's funny because there's a packet that even Candace got me for Christmas. And in it, there's so many amazing things, but it is a lot more earthy. It's a lot more, it isn't as sweet. And so I was like, we'd have to use a lot of sweetener or honey, because she likes her teas to have a little more of the sweetness. And I like kind of earthy, but it's almost very earthy for me too. And I think a lot of that comes from the ashwagandha, is it is very earthy.
Yes.
What was the name of it in Sanskrit? What was the meaning of it?
In Sanskrit, it smells like a horse. That's what the description. It comes from a bush that has yellow flowers. So yes, just make sure that when you use it, that you use it with either spearmint or peppermint or some kind of citrus, or if you're going to be having it in tea. If you take it in caps, you can take it straight, and it could help you with your performance. It actually increases testosterone, but it can also help with anxiety and depression and help reduce stress. So it's a fantastic herb. So even though we kind of make jokes about how it's stinky and doesn't taste the best, but if you're looking
powerful.
for a good herb, this is a highly recommended herb to use, though.
Yeah. I just think it's all beautiful. And without further ado, I think we just need to jump into this.
Yes, dive in.
And such a healing and empowering topic.
Yeah. Well, let's review a little bit. So in one of our prior episodes, we talked about shamanic cosmology and the cosmic tree of life. This is central to shamanic teachings. And the tree is found, the stories of the tree of life is as a worldwide story. There's something that we all connect to spiritually when it comes to the tree of life. So it's not just the shamanic teachings that talk about it, the Christian faith, the Nordic faith, a lot of the pagan traditions. It's just all over the world. And I think even the Hindu, Jewish mysticism, it's just everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Everywhere. So when we work with our shamanic work, we always journey into the lower world of this tree of life. And the tree of life represents the lower, the middle, and the upper. The lower being the roots of the tree, the parts that go into the ground or into the world of Sophia Gaia. The trunk of the tree is the middle world. And then the upper tree are the branches that stretch out and are kissed by the sun's rays, is what they will say. So when we journey the lower world, this is the part of the tree where we explore the subconscious, where we connect with our inner child and our inner wounding and trauma, where we reclaim those parts of ourselves that we may have pushed away because of trauma, or we may have pushed away because we were told that's what we need to do. So the journeys that you experience in the lower world are extremely healing, empowering, and life-changing. And it's not a scary place. You know, a lot of people, they're like, oh, the lower world, that sounds so scary.
That was my first thought when I started with you. You're
Yes.
like, we're going to explore the lower world. And I was like it made me nervous. I started getting anxiety
Yes.
because you think of that being something dark and dreaded, but also it is the subconscious and it's a lot of childhood. You know, there's a section in which we go and we work with our inner child. We do we do soul retrievals. We do so many amazing things that are in such a deep way that's so changing. So I almost think it's fitting that it's like the lower world can be like this hesitation, only because sometimes it's vulnerable for even us to want to go into that space within. But it isn't bad or wrong. Going back into our previous podcast, we talked about we're more than this physical journey, and us feeling bad and wrong and sinful and heavy is very much so this physical context. And so when we can remember, okay, my spirit is so much more, this is an opportunity for learning. It doesn't have to define me or make me bad and wrong. That's when the whole lower world opens up into this beautiful space of creation versus this heavy blockage of energy.
Yes. And you remember, like, when we were exploring this, we spend the first couple of months really exploring the middle world and getting to know yourself as a multidimensional being, and meeting your animal allies and your spirit guides, and really knowing who is supporting you on the other side of the veil, getting comfortable with that, getting comfortable with journeying into different dimensions of reality, which again reaffirms and reminds you of your magnificence, the fact that you're not just a physical body, and that you're not just your emotions or the things that have happened to you, all those things. I think it's really important to get strong there first, you know, before we really dive into the lower world, because like you were saying, a lot of people are intimidated by that. They're like, gosh, that sounds so scary and overwhelming. I don't know if I want to do a shadow work or inner child work or do a soul retrieval. It just sounds so intense and so awful.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get prepared and you come back into remembrance of who you are first, when you start exploring who is there for you on the other side, and you recognize how loved you are and how supported you are from spirit, that again helps you relax. And then when you actually do go into the lower world, it's so different from that. It's not a place at all that's scary. In fact, we should talk about our personal experiences. Like, what
Yeah.
did you see? And I think this is important because it actually is quite the opposite, right, Jen? It's actually a very magical, beautiful place.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember this, but we, you on one of our calls when you were talking about the lower world, you're like, okay, we're going to do this lower world. And it didn't work out for whatever reason during our call for us to actually do that journey. And I was like, okay, I'll just do it on my own. But it was like I didn't really want you to be there with me because I was worried about what was going to happen. And it manifested where it didn't work out. And every time we tried to do that together, it just didn't work out. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do this on my own. I don't even know if you probably didn't even realize that was happening, but that's what was going on in my space. And so finally, and this was when we were exploring our inner child. And so when I went and did this, it was very much so like I needed it to be my personal thing because I was so worried about what I was going to experience. And so you showed me like we walked into the tree, or you like showed me how you would go down into the lower world. And I remember going into my meadow, walking over to my tree, and I just placed my hand on the tree trunk. And it was like all of a sudden, it was
Adore.
almost like this keypad where it was like it opened up this door, but it was only my handprint, only my spirit's essence that could open up the door. So no one else was allowed into that space unless I invited them in. So I started walking down it was like a
That
spiraling
staircase.
staircase going into like it was like off on the left. I could walk off and it was like this hallway, but the staircase kept going. So I went off into the staircase, off of the staircase to the left, and I was just walking and it was like all of this. It's so interesting. I'm like being drawn there right now, but it was like the ground was really soft. It was really cold. It was just like kind of like this wet dirt. And as I kept
Decay, yeah.
walking, I could see on the walls, it was like all these spirals, which every time I do a session, I write on my paper these specific things. And it was like I could see those on the walls as I was walking. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I walk into my space, and this isn't as common for people, I feel like, but the first time that I went in, it was a mini golf course. And my little girl, Jenny, was there holding this little pink rod and this pink ball, just like waiting for me to come and play freaking mini golf with her.
Yep. Mhm.
And I hated mini golf when I was little. I just thought it was so boring, but it was so beautiful because we went and we played mini golf and we looked at the fun things that were there on the mini golf course, but I could just get and be with her. And it didn't have to be one way or it didn't have to be another. And I didn't even do any heavy shadow work with her. I just played mini golf. And at the end, I gave her a big hug and I said, I just loved you. This was so much fun to spend time with you. And she was like, please come back. And so then when I went back the next time, I opened up the door and I was in this such a magical forest. And when I was little, I used to talk to fairies. Fairies were my jam. They were everywhere. So I walked in and it was like these bright, vibrant neon colors. These flowers were like these bright colors that
Mhm.
you've never even seen here.
Yes.
And there were like these little fairies flying all around and all these different things. And it was like a very fun and a very imaginative space, but it felt like I was home. It felt like
Yeah.
this is what I experienced as a child. And my little girl was there and she's like, hi. And she wanted me to go with her. And we went into this little river. We played in this river and it was just very playful and it was very fun. And I said, hey, is there anything you want to talk to me about? And I just remember her busting into tears and was like, I just feel like no one loves me. Like, no one cares about me. And so then I sat with her and we explored that and we talked about that. But that's this lesson or this thought that I carry with me a lot is if people don't love me, if people don't accept me, they don't love me. And if I'm not loved, then what's my worth? And of course we know with all that we do, and even coming out and talking about all these different things that we're learning in shamanism and this multidimensional self, is it's very vulnerable.
Yes.
And it can be easy to fall into that space of, if someone hears this and they don't accept it, they don't accept me, and then I'm not loved.
Yeah.
And so I could sit with her and be with her and cultivate that. And it was just so beautiful. And it wasn't heavy, it wasn't dark, but it was very healing in a way that was very joyful and childlike and fun. It was
Yes.
beautiful.
And you notice that not only was it not scary, it was beautiful.
It's almost comical that I was like, I don't even want Candace in my energy to go there.
Right. But it makes sense though,
Yeah.
considering what she told you.
Yeah, that's true.
Considering what she told you. And so I just think that it's such a beautiful experience because it really reconnects you back into your purity, your innocence. And the lower world, I tell you, Jen, again and again and again, every single person I've talked to, they describe the lower world the same. It's like everything is big. The forest
Yeah,
is
it's like
tropical.
it's huge and you're just like
Yeah.
this little
And
tiny
it's like you're
thing.
little. Yeah. And the leaves, the blades of grass, everything is really big.
You know,
And
like, yeah, like when you are, have you ever watched Avatar?
mhm,
Where they're like at night and it's like that blue vibrant color.
yes, lower world looks a
It's
lot like the movie
very,
Avatar.
yes, very similar to
Yes,
that.
so true, so true.
Yeah.
And the elementals are in this realm, and this is where you get to connect with the fairy realm, where you get to connect with um, all of the different elements that we don't see. And even though you connect with your animal allies in the middle realm, the animal allies can also meet you in the lower realm as well. And so a lot of times you'll see animals there or connect with animals. You'll connect also in the lower world, you can connect with Pachamama. And this is what the Incans call Mother Earth or Sophia Gaia. It's her spirit. And a lot of
Wow.
people engage with her spirit with ayahuasca. And they all describe that sometimes she'll show up as a big snake, which sounds scary, but I've connected in with that energy in the lower world without any ayahuasca. And she has given me so much wisdom and insight from her perspective in this space. So there's tremendous healing and awareness that you can gather. But guess how old I was in that space when I met with her? I was like 5 years old. I showed up and manifested as a little girl. And I think that
Wow.
when we reconnect in with our true essence, even though we're so powerful as multidimensional beings and creators, we're made in the image of our creator. There is a core innocence and purity with truth and love. And it's almost like when you connect with her, you reconnect into that purity and that power inside of you. And then when you face the shadows and the things that she's sad about, it's not scary at all. It's almost like it's so fulfilling because you finally feel so heard. There's this thing, it's like you feel seen, you feel heard, you feel held. It has this energy of love, and you find yourself wrapping your arms around, this little girl self and holding
Mhm.
her and merging back with her energy. And it is soul fulfilling. You know how you're saying it's soul fulfilling? It's soul fulfilling to go
Absolutely.
there. It's not scary, it's soul fulfilling. And it's interesting too, in the sense of I worked with some people in this space who also connected into a past life as a child, which I thought was really interesting because that was so unexpected. I didn't expect to journey into a past life, but her inner child took her to a previous life in another time where she had been wounded, and that energy had been brought over in this life to her inner child. She carried it from a very young age and was thinking that it was rooted somewhere in here in this life, but it was actually rooted in another time. And that was a really interesting experience to witness. And so it you never know what you're going to experience there, but it's magical. It's not dark. It's
Yeah,
not scary. It is magical. It's vibrant. It's beautiful.
absolutely. And it's so interesting too, because we have where we can do inner child work. And then we also have where we can go in and do a soul retrieval as well.
Mhm.
And we talked a little bit about soul retrieval, but I think that we should dive into that. And then I have a really cool experience, Candace, that I want to share with you that happened last week. After you
Yes.
kind of go into that basic
Yes.
understanding of it.
So when I do soul retrieval with my clients, the reason I do them is because if they're sometimes when you're trying to get to the root of where something is coming from, where you may have a phobia, where you may feel depressed or have anxiety, where there's this feeling of disconnection. It's almost like someone may experience a feeling of indifference where they don't feel like they're truly grounded here. They
Mm-hmm.
may feel spacey and ungrounded and unsatisfied and unfulfilled. There may be a longing. When someone says that they're experiencing those things, I know at some point we're going to end up doing a soul retrieval. And we do this with all of the students as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't usually dive right into a soul retrieval. I prefer to have a couple of sessions first to really work with them and going into an altered state of consciousness, which is through meditation, practice meditation with them, guide them to the meadow so they understand who is on the other side supporting them, so they feel that love and support and their guides. And then I will go there depending on how long we have. But then I feel like we can go there unless the person has all this experience in meditation and they've been doing it forever. That's a different story.
Right.
But most of the people that I worked with are really coming into their awakening.
Good.
They've dabbled into this and that, but they haven't really dedicated themselves to their healing path yet. They're really wanting to, and that's why they're there.
And I love that you do that in layers, because it's almost like in order to have that as transformative as possible and to trust what you're experiencing to make that everlasting change, is you have to have steps of trusting yourself in journey work or in
Yes.
meditation. If someone were to say, hey, let's go explore a past life, when you don't even know how to do breath work, or you're not even comfortable with sitting in your meadow and feeling like you can trust yourself, well, doing a soul retrieval for yourself or being a part of that soul retrieval isn't going to be as impactful because you don't trust what you're
What you're
experiencing.
receiving or what you're
Yeah.
experiencing. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's part of the beautiful journey of exploring gifts of spirit as well, because when you really deepen your strengths, and you really get to know how gifts of spirit work for you, if you're more clairvoyant or clairsentient, or how energy moves, how it works for you, how it communicates with you, you're right. It's like at that point, then you go and then you are able to receive so much more. You're
Mm-hmm.
not completely leaning on your medicine man or medicine woman, your shaman healer, to give you all the answers. And I realize there is a place for that. I'm not saying that that's wrong, but what I love to show people how they can do things for themselves, because it's like
Absolutely.
handing them a key or a tool. It's like saying, look, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to guide you through this process. But guess what? You get to do this
Mm-hmm.
for yourself anytime that you feel called to do it. And then they always have that tool for the rest of their lives. And it's a powerful, powerful tool.
Absolutely.
So anyway, that kind of gives you an explanation. You know, I've I know earlier you mentioned that, your experience of the lower world and what you experience, and this commonality I find in so many people. Well, even when I journeyed there for the first time, I had a similar experience where I went down the spiral staircase, and it opened up into a hall. It was like not a hall, it was like a tunnel. And on the side of the walls of the tunnel were these lanterns of light, and they would glow on the wall of the tunnel, and I would see these carvings or petroglyphs or drawings on the walls of the cave. And there it was dewy and wet. You could hear the drops of water dropping on the ground as I was moving down the staircase, the wooden staircase, and it was damp. And then I came out of the tunnel, and it just opened up into this beautiful, magical, green, tropical world. And when we do the journey to the soul retrieval, you journey into an energy called the underworld, which again, it sounds really scary, where it's like, oh, the underworld. And you think about the old Greek teachings and the old, Roman and teachings, and like, oh, the underworld's hell, it's hell. Again, when we journey there, it's not like that. It's not a scary place. But you go even deeper. It's like you kind of go down even deeper below that level of consciousness that you visited when you visited the lower world and the inner child. It'll take you even deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And the access point to that space is usually in a different spot. It's usually in the meadow, the sacred meadow, where I have a portal that I have my students enter, which is like under these two boulders. It's kind of like these huge boulders that show up in the middle of the meadow, and we journey underneath that, and it goes into a portal, and we journey down a portal, and then we come out into the underworld. And the explanation of the underworld has been very similar with any experience I've had in the underworld space with others, has again been very similar. A lot of people will say it's beautiful, sort of like southern Utah or Zion National Park, or there's red rocks and boulders, and there's vegetation and greenery, and there's all of these different things. It's not dry, but it has kind of that energy. It's kind of interesting. And it hasn't been just me that saw that. Like I said, I've been seeing a lot of people will tell me that they see the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But this sweet little guardian named Moki is the one who guides you in the underworld for your soul retrieval journey. And he looks like the little boy from Jungle Book.
Yes, he does. Barefoot, little tiny like little tiny shorts, like ripped at the seams.
High energy.
Yes. Darker, really, like kind of rugged, wild hair. Yes.
Yes. And he's really cute, and he has a lot of energy. He'll dance circles around you, run
so
circles around you.
Every time he's just like, you're here, like, like so excited for the change.
Yes. And there is a guardian of the underworld. A lot of people are intimidated by that idea. And we call him Waskar in the Incan traditions. Moki is the guardian, the guide. And the guardian of the underworld is Waskar. But he's never appeared scary. He appears different to different people. He'll come up in it with a different body, at different times. But he is in charge of holding that space for us and holding those records. And so we always visit him before, our guide Moki takes us all the way to the caves where we do our soul retrieval. But we always give him love offerings and tell him why we're there. And he always is open to healing. He wants that for everyone. And so he's not this dark, awful energy. Is actually a very powerful but he wants us to heal, and always welcomes those who are there for that healing. So that's kind of an overview, and we could go into deeper detail about that experience in the underworld and what it looks like, and where the chambers are and where you do these pulled these aspects of ourselves that we have pushed away. But I've never come across anyone who has gone through that experience and has not seen profound healing and change
Yeah, I
in their
almost
lives.
yeah, it almost feels like it's so sacred
It's super
that it's
sacred.
something that's needed to be experienced rather than just talked openly. All the
Mm-hmm.
different chambers and the different, I don't know, I just feel like there's like this. I feel like I see this like,
Mm-hmm. Don't go
don't
too
go too
much.
far. It's got to be,
Mm-hmm. Needs
yeah.
to be
And
personal.
it's so interesting because even last week, which I'm feeling prompted to share, so I will, because the soul retrieval was so personal. There's so much intimacy that's connected into your space of this understanding. So if someone's open to sharing, that's awesome. But this was like a different kind of experience for me. So Candace, when we explored the West and the ocean, which we'll talk about that, I've always had this deep rooted fear about water. Like I
Yes.
hyperventilate and like you're like just sink into the water and let it take you. And I was like I literally couldn't do it, right?
Yeah.
And then it was like finally when we did, we saw this almost like this underwater village, like this sacred underwater village
That was
where
neat.
yes. Okay, so remember that. So
Mm-hmm.
I I was in my meadow and all of a sudden I had this snake just like open. It's like this huge snake. He opened his mouth. So I was like, okay, I guess this is what I need to do today. So I step into the snake and he brings me down into that opening where Moki is. And I'm like, what am I doing here? So I just trusted it. And in my life, I had been facing a lot of things where everything I felt like was supposed to be laying out in place, it just kept shutting. Like the door would crack open and then it would slam shut. And I just kept feeling like, I want to live outside the box. I want to get outside of this energy, but I just don't feel like I can, like it's not safe. And so when I go into this space, that's kind of like what's been going on in my life. So when I go into this space, I see Moki and he just invites me to come swim in this water. So I'm like, okay. So we're just swimming in the
Of
water.
course.
And all of a sudden he's like, do you trust me? And I'm like, yes. And then all of a sudden we started like sinking deep into the water. And I was like I started feeling that fear. And then he like looked at me and he like smiled. And then he just started swimming, like just so excited. And he like beckoned me to follow. So I followed him and we went through like this little underground tunnel. And then we came up and we were able to breathe. And then he's like, okay, follow me. So we like dive deeper down. And there was that city again. And I was like,
Wow.
okay, what is he wanting to teach me? And what am I supposed to learn about this? And so he dives in, and all of a sudden I'm brought to this past life experience. And I could see myself, I could see this female who I felt very connected to. And it was like I was reliving this memory of what happened in that area. And it was like, I had these children, I had these 4 kids, and I was kind of just trying to survive on my own. And every time I tried to step outside or every time I tried to get off into the kind of like the deeper part of the ocean, I would always be called back in. And finally, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. This is my time. And I swam out, and all of a sudden, this huge shark just came and like took my whole house where my kids were at, where I was at, and just like decimated all of it. And I remember just like seeing this woman right here in front of me, and I was like watching the torture and the torment that she had. I'm like, why didn't I just play it safe? Why didn't I just stay in my safe zone? What's wrong with me? I costed my whole family. My kids are gone. My house is gone. And all of a sudden, I just felt so much love for her. And she like noticed us watching. And then Moki was like waving at her. And he placed my hand on her heart center. And it was so beautiful because his loving energy like helped bring this bridge of this healing towards both of us. And it was like, this is why I'm deathly afraid of deep water, like
Yeah.
immensely. And it's always draws to me. Like I went to Lake Powell with my friends last year and I wanted to be in the water, but it was almost like this liberating fear over and over and over again. And it just like I could see all of that happening where it was trying to bridge this experience. And so afterward, after we had our experience and all of that, Moki brought me back up and he sat on the water shore with me. And he was just like, I'm so proud of you. And he gave me just like the biggest hug and he gave me like this spiral seashell. And he said, Here. And he gave it to me. And then I went back into the snake and I came back up into my meadow and came back into my body. But it was so unexpected, but it was exactly what I needed. And going
Yeah.
back into my physical world is after that, all of a sudden I'm like, no, I don't need to always play it safe. Like it's okay. Like I've created kids courses. I have all these courses of information, like all sectioned out. I just haven't done it because it hasn't felt safe. And all of a sudden I'm like, no, this is the time. And so I've started to do that. I've started to just jump in and to be more vocal and to share. And but it was almost like I needed to heal that deep wound. And even things with Curtis, with what we want to do in our life, with things not working out and things are starting to start into play. But it's like surrendering and knowing that I'm married to someone who's not going to live a traditional lifestyle. He's very big, he's very bold. He has a lot of ideas. Some things work, some things don't, but that's naturally part of his flow. And I kept stifling him because I was afraid that it wasn't going to work out. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. And we're just overcoming this space where we're kind of regrouping from an opportunity that didn't work out. And it almost gave me permission to say, hey, look, I'm going to trust you. You're going to be inspired for what you feel like you need to do. And I'm going to work
Yes.
on what I need to create. And things are going forward at a lot quicker of a space because
Yes.
it's actually safe to do it. But I
Yes.
needed that time with her. I needed to see that trauma and to see, dare I say, this past life experience to then
Mhm.
help me reclaim those soul portions so then I can move forward now. And it's such a
Mhm.
sacred experience. It's like, I don't know what happened. And I had people who are skeptical, like, I don't know what happened, but it made a difference in my physical life now. And
Mhm.
that's what journey work does. It
That's what it
changes who you
does.
are
It really
here,
does.
or why would we do it? Right? What's the
Hmm.
point?
What's the point? Yeah, because
Yes.
we're practical mystics, you know. It's like we love all
Yes.
this stuff. At the same time, at the end of the day, if it
What's the
doesn't
point?
create
Yeah.
healthy change, and what is the point? And that is that healthy masculine within us, right? That says, look,
Yeah.
it's wonderful to integrate the intuition and the nurturing and the healing, but if it doesn't create solid change in this dimension and shifts in this dimension to bring more peace, more joy, more abundance, then what are we doing? Right? It's the integration of both of those things. And that is, I love that you share this because that's very vulnerable, but at the same time, this is vulnerable work.
Hmm.
This is work where you understand who you are in truth and that these were all different experiences that you had. There is an energy, a residual energy that is left behind in our field from these experiences. There's really no such thing as time and space. And this is why it's so easy to access past lives or other dimensions, because it really is the most natural thing that we can do as multidimensional beings. But it's just knowing how to do it and to feel confident in what you are seeing and experiencing and feeling, and knowing that it is true what you were seeing, feeling, experiencing, and that you can take that experience and create permanent change. And what I love about journey work is that you're not consciously thinking about that, but it just
Mm-mm. It
does.
just happens.
It just happens. And so that's what's so cool about it, is that once you really start trusting yourself, and trusting your intuition and what you're seeing and feeling and experiencing, you realize that in spirit, you have all of the senses. You have feeling and smelling and tasting and hearing. And this is something that we all have access to because we think it's just connected to the body, but it's actually not true. You have all of those senses in your spirit body. Back in the times of Egypt, they called that spirit body the Ka body.
Yes, I remember learning about that in 6th grade. I was like, oh, that's so interesting. It was like so
Yeah,
enticing at
it
such a young
is.
age. Yeah, it's
Yes, it's
cool.
probably the connection. But anyway, I hope that this helps everybody understand that, you know, these things are possible. You know, when you reclaim that, it's not that when we talk about a soul retrieval, when we talk about the fragmented soul, that really in truth that you're fragmented and they're off in pieces. And what it represents is there is a part of you that you have pushed away for safety
Mhm.
reasons.
Yeah.
There are, and that energy has affected your current manifestations. So when you journey into a soul retrieval, you're reclaiming them. You're reclaiming the experience and the lessons behind the experience. And that way the wisdom can be fully integrated. And then it shifts your vibration. It shifts your frequency and those things that you experience in the world of Maya. It has a complete effect on the whole of your
Absolutely.
experience. So it's extremely powerful. So I hope that now that we've explored the lower world, it's not a scary place. You're not visiting some crazy dark energy. This is a place of reclaiming your inner innocence and power. It's a place of healing, of recognition of
Absolutely.
your gifts and all the things that you bring to creation. And it's your reconnection to Mother Earth's energy and her wisdom teachings, among many other things. So I hope that when our listeners explore the lower world, that they, first of all, strengthen themselves and their intuition and work on meditation and work it to a place like that where they feel secure and ready. And then they consider this as an option for their healing path.
Absolutely.
So thank you everyone for meeting with us today,
Thank you.
for
Thank you.
really diving into the wisdom teachings of the lower world. I hope that this brought so much insight and awareness. Reach out to a local shaman or reach out to us if this is something that you would like to explore. Blessings, everyone.
Thank you for watching Modern Sages. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
We are so grateful for your support. If you want to follow us, we have an Instagram account as well as on Facebook. We have our podcast, which is the Modern Sages podcast as well.
And we are so excited to launch our Gifts of Spirit classes in our Modern Sages Mystery School.
Absolutely. Oh, we're so excited. So we're going to link the information below in the show notes for more information about our mystery school.